Well, thanks NZAS for inviting me to talk, and oh, good. So we've got to find the thing here. And I'll try and get through things reasonably crisply so we can actually talk quick to questions later. Taken on a big title, the role of independent research institutes, and I'm not going to speak for independent research institutes in New Zealand because we don't know where all of them are. They're actually, some of them are quite invisible, but they actually play a very important role. I'd like to just quickly sort of go through and just introduce how independent research institutes can look around the world, and then I want to get a little bit about how the one that I'm involved with, the Malaghan Institute, and that Mike Burge is involved with, how that's actually was born, raised, and what the role it does play in the New Zealand health science ecosystem. And perhaps we can talk a little bit about later on about what New Zealand should actually be doing about its independent research organisations, and I'll just try and showcase some some positive things and some things that should be happening. What is the global role? Most developed countries actually have a very positive attitude towards independent research institutes, and they've found one or other mechanism to really drive their development and make sure that, as well as CRI equivalents and university equivalents, one of the most powerful and potent ways of actually getting value out of your science is actually through independent research organisations. If I just start with the states over there, I can name them. There's the Howard Hughes, the White Institute, various forms, often funded by people with large egos and big pocketbooks to really drive the best that science can achieve in a specific area. The Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute's another one. It's not just health, across the spectrum, with the Americans really trying to drive and use the power of an independent institute to really bring like-minded people together and focus full-time on research without the trappings or the distractions of teaching or those other things. So they become, and they actually do a scorecard, if you like, in America. How many Nobel Prize winners, how many patentable discoveries. You'll find the ratios in those organisations far outweigh any university department, etc., etc. Moving across the Atlantic, you can go to the UK. They have a slightly sort of mixed model of semi-government supported independent institutes or private institutes. But in Germany, you've got the full Max Planck Institutes where they take across the whole spectrum, and that's a fantastic body of organisations where they're all set up, they're funded by a mixture of state and federal government, but they're completely independent with that independent mission to go and do research and the best research you can in a particular area. And if you just go to the Max Planck website, you just see it. It's a daunting just what they're prepared to take on in a basic setting, etc. France, quite a different sort of way, very centralised, very old-fashioned government thing, but centrally government-supported institutes doing basic research, independent of universities and all the issues of teaching, etc. Singapore has been dabbling in some sort of more commercial model. I wouldn't call them independent institutes because they're very linked to the government priorities and commercial, but they are something like that. Australia, our dear friend Australia, they have supported independent institutes as an essential part of their ecosystem for many years, and it goes way back 100 years really. And they actually have a federal funding program to half support any independent institute which meets a certain criteria to make sure that they are alive and well, and they're mixed across all the different science sectors. Now, New Zealand, poor New Zealand. We do suffer the tyranny of distance and the fact that for a number of years we've always managed to dob into the UK model, the US model. We actually only had, until very recently, only about 2 million people. Hard to drive universities and CRIs, let alone independent institutes. But we're now 4 million people. And I suppose a little bit where I come from is I never wanted to work in a university. There's nothing wrong with them. I've got trained at a university. I never wanted to work in a CRI, and I've worked in the CRI. I like the idea of an independent institute being, it just scratches my itches that you really want to, but I suppose it's for the kind of people that need to focus, probably slightly introverted people, they don't need the stimulus of students and blah, 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 but you want to do something with your science. CRIs want to do something with their science, but they're big mission-led. Independent people, they've got to do something now, so they tend to be impatient. And they tend to be also linked to hope. So let's just go to the Malaghan Institute, and it's a typical sort of funded on a vision of bringing hope and opportunity for people. Mr. Malaghan, that's Len Malaghan, he is the founder of Tip Top Ice Cream, and his wife, they believed old-fashioned kind of community Wellington here. We've never been blessed with a strong medical research universities here, and Len was getting sick with cancer, but they felt that when they had enough money for their family, they should invest in the community, and they thought at the time health was a really important part of what we're experiencing. Remember, polio, all those things with childhood illnesses, really important issue. So they put some money aside to foster and found an independent research institute, and they really believed in that more commercial focused model. And that's where it started. And where are we now? We've got 90 plus staff. We've got that state-of-the-art building we rent off the university, iconic. We're still an independent charity, very fierce independent, which means we can do what we want to do. And we have a funding mix of contestable grants about 85% and philanthropy about 15%. Now, I've got to tell the honest truth. We have managed to create, and I'm talking about Mike and myself here, and Franca and Ian, a strong independent institute because the government funding model of paying full cost overheads for a period of time, not anymore, but for a period of time through the HRC grants enabled scientists to win grants and then pay for their business activities for a while. So now it's really essential we have philanthropy coming in to take on that extra cost because the grants are capped and it's no longer full cost funding model quite. It's sort of this funny thing where it's just all a bit tense. And we do about 10 million per annum on research activity, and we try and do everything which is important, and we get informed by the community, what they care about, whether it's cancer. We can't just go wandering off and do completely our other thing, but we try and do our basic stuff. So why we're here and actually what guides us, there has to be potential for major breakthroughs and new treatments. We try and represent something for world-class medical research in New Zealand. There's a feeling now, I think, in New Zealand, as we get to 4 million people, we've been reminded by the Poms, by the Yanks, not at the moment by Asia, but we are alone down here. We have to start looking at our own nation and what we build here. We cannot rely on the Australians, for instance, to do everything for us. They also, they see themselves as independent from us. So I think there's a lot of nation building going on at how we build our institutions in a more careful, qualified way of what we need, and the science sector is very much part of that. Our Royal Society is stronger. We're actually looking to ourselves to try and build a proper environment now. And of course, an independent institute, I passionately believe, is an important instrument that we're actually missing and don't have enough of. Just quickly, the focus is on the immune system because it is the scientific discipline of the moment. It really is. We talk a lot about change, but anatomy doesn't drive breakthroughs anymore. Biochemistry doesn't drive breakthroughs anymore. Gene technology doesn't drive breakthroughs anymore. It's a combination of a lot of big data and a lot of sophisticated biology and physiology which makes us, i.e. our gut, our thymus, our spleen, our bone marrow. And that particular discipline is one of the new areas. And actually New Zealand's been very slow to take that on. Australia, the NHMRC funding system is dominated by strong immunology programs. Here in New Zealand, that has never really quite come through. I'll just put that little dig in there. The other reason why it's an thing is because we're now seeing some incredible breakthroughs in the cancer immunotherapy space. And I'll just give you a quick example of that. Here we have Keytruda and Yervoy. They've got unpronounceable names. Basically, they interfere with the way the immune system that exists within us interferes with an emerging cancer cell. You fiddle with that, and you can get really good outcomes, incredible outcomes. That's late-stage melanoma, which would have been a death sentence within 3 or 4 months. You get one of the lucky patients that respond, boom, it's disappeared, and that person's going to live. Now, it doesn't happen to everyone, but when doctors see that, when patients see that, and relatives see that, that's an era we're now living in. And now immunology is providing solutions, not just for cancer, but for autoimmune disease. These are biological things, and also allergies and asthmas and stuff like that. So, very exciting time to be an immunologist. So quickly, our programs, we have a cancer research program. We actually try and build things here in New Zealand, not just try and download it from overseas, where we actually try and use living cell vaccines, where you actually take cancer cells, take immune cells, fiddle with them in the test tubes, and put them back into people where they can go and hunt down and kill the cancer. And of course, we borrow extensively from elsewhere. Another important issue, our gut health. That's your gut, and that's all what it can feel like sometimes. What is a good, healthy person? It's a relationship between you, your genes, your environment, and the microbes that live on us and within us. And we actually, it's a lot of things we don't understand there. And clearly we've changed that over the past 100 years. We are seeing incredible rates of inflammatory diseases appearing. We link it to these things. We don't know enough yet to find out how to actually make things better. I think I've got Mr. Berridge there. Underpinning our translational science and health science, there's Mike there with an incredibly, I think, the largest team, Mike, just studying bits and pieces how a cell works. And this is now emerging to be very important. You never would have predicted a few years ago, but really understanding the basis of cellular life and what determines the energy requirements and what it can and can't do is becoming very important for understanding a whole lot of big things. My own area, parasitic diseases, they're a source of all sorts of problems, but also can be a source of treatments. I've mentioned that already. And also get a sense how to exist in the world, because we raise hope to several groups of people. To people who actually want a better outcome for their health issue, which is cancer or allergy or whatever. And we try and develop things here in New Zealand which actually can get into the bedside, but also commercially. The government, and that's why I asked that question to Paul Goldsmith, because it's quite clear, are they looking for financial and economic outcomes with their science investment? We feel the pressure very much. I don't know whether the other institutions do. We really feel if we can just invest in something like an independent institute, we've actually got the fastest way to the market or to a commercialisable outcome, and because we have the nimbleness and the opportunities to engage very quickly, and we don't have the university, whatever they call it, the commercialisation department looking over us. We can actually really work with the people that can help things develop and go further, and also work with the right kind of hospital authorities without a lot of bureaucracy involved. So that's what we try and do there. Next 5 years, that's just us. And I suppose this is a big issue for us. Be one in New Zealand's cutting edge for biomedical research centre, because New Zealand does seem to have one. Other countries have them, and it's actually, they see the outputs there for various reasons, which we can go into later. But the costs of this, because of the globalised science community, are getting far more and more and more. And that's one of the real difficulties we face. Can we, at New Zealand, really afford to have a cutting edge basic research institute? And that's a big question I have to ask myself every day. We're struggling and hanging on. We don't have a science ecosystem designed for us to survive. We don't have tech funding. We don't, that the universities have, or the CRI capability funding. Whether we can survive long term, I don't know, but just based on philanthropy and a few community people who want to have an institute, we've got to somehow convince we can make a few gains for New Zealand, and maybe there'll be an opportunity to have more supported. Now, what's happening there? It's nonsense. That's just to give you an idea of the number of people that go through an institute like ours. They're all young, they move on and enrich the community. I think I've said that already. But hope is on the way. New Zealand Independent Research Institutes, IRANS, you need to be aware of this body. It was originally very much institutes that were researching around industry. They used industry levy to drive their activities. The government recently put out a independent research organisation kind of funding scheme for in the regions. God, there's not enough bloody independent researchers in the main centres. But anyway, they've gone for the regions. Good. And you now see, with those people joining this group here, and including Richard Beasley's Medical Research Institute in New Zealand, the course Ron, one could imagine that we are going to build a head of steam that this could become part of the science ecosystem for New Zealand. Be very interesting. It needs to be guided and looked after. And just to show you, this is a graph, of course, and we're scientists, we love graphs. This is publications this way, in the top 10 journal percentiles, field-weighted citation impacts, and there you've got Richard Beasley's Medical Research Institute and the Malaghan. Of course, we're way out on top. The course one's way out on the top compared to the universities and all the other things, but it's not fair. We need them as well. I don't want to be smart-ass. In fact, they could ask, hey, LeGros, why aren't you way out here with all the advantages that you're supposed to have? So just take this with a grain of salt. It's not a way of just chipping on the others, just to show that we should be out there because we actually get to do the thing properly. We are doing research for research's sake. I think New Zealand, I'm making the argument New Zealand needs it. Thank you. And to time.
Yeah, damn good timing. Plenty of time for questions. Yes?
You talked about things like Max Planck and so forth, and the NSF funded around that sort of model as well. So I'd just like you to comment a little bit about, in New Zealand we see these independent research organisations basically focused around applied science. But
Yeah.
in the rest of the world there's a lot of discovery.
Yes, and
science.
exactly. We've got to have this cutting edge science to make the real breakthroughs. They want they want the big wins. You're not going to get that doing the late stage applied. You need to have that pipeline coming through. You have to recognise, yes, exactly. So we have not made the commitment as New Zealand. We're a small, pragmatic country. We just, put things in. We believe in our universities, and we haven't really understood, and we've always relied on the UK and the Americans to give us access to their basic science discoveries. That won't do us any good.
Wonderful presentation. When you look to commercialise, do you partner with a larger pharmaceutical company for obvious reasons?
No. We look to partner with someone here in New Zealand. We've actually partnered with Powerhouse Venture. At the moment, we're trying to build the ecosystem. That's what I mean. We don't necessarily need more money for the Malaghan, but we need more money for the ecosystem to support the power of an independent research organisation. We don't have enough scientists, so when I go back, in the economic space, helping commercialise and develop things so they become useful. There's a lot of science to be done, but we don't. It's not just the discovery in the university. It's the 1,000 things that have to go into something to make it useful all the way out. And we don't have that as a system. We're finding it's very desert-like. And that's why we're going overseas. So we're trying to consciously go through and build an environment here in New Zealand, in Wellington.
All right, I think we'll stop there. Oh, no, we've got a question. Yeah.
Are you saying that it's, I'm just not sure I agree that it's always best to, you find, if there's things that other places around the world are more specialised in or have more experience in, is it not necessarily more beneficial to then keep working on that, take what they've found and then apply it to your own?
No, it's not. No, don't even say that. We've been saying that for 100 years. But when it came to the soil science in this country, we had to do our own soil science here to put ourselves on the map agriculturally, etc., etc. No, and you've got to understand what a society has to be, and we've actually got to be proud of our institutions. We've actually got to have people that know how to know what's good science, because one of the troubles, unless you have people at the cutting edge, they don't know the wheat from the chaff in terms of what are the good breakthroughs to follow and what's relevant to New Zealand.
Right, well, we'll stop there. Thank you very much, Graham. And I'll ask you later about how to establish an independent paleontological institute. How about that?
But that's a really good point, though. But just imagine how that would inspire you. You could have had such a different life.
No, I am inspired.
Actually,
Don't
I've got to
worry.
say,
I'm
I've
serious.
got to say one
I'm
thing.
serious.
If you know Richard Furneaux has been in the CRI. He's been trapped in a CRI for, 100 years? I hope this has been recorded, Richard. And he has just recently moved from the IRL, and it's a great place, and set up this Ferry Institute. And he works day and night. He's a man gone wild, but that's a person that should have been leading an independent research institute long ago. New Zealand would have been a better place for it if he had been released from IRL.
See the value of these conferences?